And where we're on silent for a few minutes.
All right, hey, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for this Navionics seminar in cooperation with the Snook and Gamefish Foundation, making fishing technology work for you. My name is Mike Readling. I'm the Florida Marine Specialist for Navionics. I'm also the Snook and Gamefish Foundation Chairman. I'm here tonight with Brett Fitzgerald, who is our Snook and Gamefish Foundation Executive Director. I know fishing technology sounds like it's this crazy complicated stuff that you have to go into, but I think what Brett's going to talk about tonight, and I'll chime in a little bit later on, is it's really just an app on your phone to help you kind of study, so to speak, and figure out the better times for you to go fishing and what kind of conditions to look for. But I'm going to let Brett talk a little bit more about that, more in depth, and turn it over to him.
All right, great. Thanks, Mike. Is there any housekeeping issues, comments or questions?
Yeah, I have. I believe most of you, everybody muted because we don't have a bunch of background noise and cause it a bunch of chaos. If you have any questions, just feel free to type them into the question box, and I think we'll answer them as we go along. If for some reason we don't get to it by the end of the webinar, I can just email you the answer later on tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay. Great. Well, a couple weeks ago we were on and we talked about how the Angler Action Program is used for recreational anglers to input their fish data, and it's being used for stock assessments. So we got to kind of see how that information is used in the world of conservation and helping make sure we keep fish. And what I wanted to do today was show you exactly how the system works and the way that you can make this system work for you to improve your fishing. And generally what I'm going to do is walk through the process of registering and show you the important features of that, what's required and what's going to help you keep track of your trips so that you can make sense of them later. And then we'll come back through and you can see some of my trips and the way that I filter through them and break down your trips by species and by weather features or whatever, however it is you want to sort through. And you use that information to help you plan your trips in the future. And then we'll wrap it back up with Mike here showing how you can then get into the Navionics equipment and really dial in once you see what features are working best for you, or just as importantly, what you need to avoid so you don't repeat your failures. Then you can go into the Navionics and really dial in and really get something out of it. So let's jump right in. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, like I said, show you how to register first in the Angler Action Program. And I'll just start off by saying again that Angler Action Program is a service project of the Snook and Gamefish Foundation. It is basically a data warehouse that was originally designed to capture data on snook fishing trips. And it works so well for conservation that it was asked to be expanded to all species of fish. And it does that now. Anything you fish for, whether it's freshwater or saltwater, and anywhere in the world, it's a global app. So I'm going to tell you the best way to get yourself into the system. Then I'm going to show you basically how to log your trips, either on the web portal or in the apps, and then we'll get into how to use that data. So the thing that you want to kind of wrap your head around is that the Angler Action Program website, and that's what you see here, and I've pasted on the bottom there, angleraction.org. When you go to that website before you've done anything, this is what the screen looks like. You see a blank space for username and password, but that fancy little red arrow that I pasted on there that says get started, that's what you want to click, and that will get you onto your path of making sure that you have the essentials you need to get into the system. Now keep in mind, like I said, you have this angleraction.org website, but you have your smartphone apps, iAngler Lite, the old iAngler that we had, which is still a good app, the Guy Harvey app, which is called iGoFish, spelled G-H-O, the Chesapeake Catch app. They all feed into this same system. Once you register in one of them, you're registered in all of them. So your username and password, your profile, your preferences, it all carries over, and you use your same password to access all these apps. It's all the same database. You could log in under the Guy Harvey app, come into the Angler Action website, and there's your trip. You can log in under the iAngler Lite app, come to the website, and there's that trip, and they all stack up together, and you'll see how that plays in. But the important thing to know is when you first go to angleraction.org, you just want to click that Get Started button, and here's what you'll see. So this basically is your registration page, and it tells you the basic features that you have to enter to create a profile. It's going to ask your name and your email. You're going to give yourself a username and a password. That username and password is important. You want to use something that's not super easy for someone to hack into. We don't have any cases that we know of somebody trying to bust into their friends' secret spots, but that's what you're basically trying to protect, is your fishing information. So it's, some people might say it's not that big a deal. To us, when you start talking about fisheries data and the scale that we've been collecting it, it's more important than his credit card. So this basic stuff here is important. Your phone number. Now, affiliation, that is one point here that I'm going to stress on here, and that is a drop-down menu. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. What this affiliation is basically a fishing club. So the Snook and Gamefish Foundation, obviously, if you're an SGF member, you might want to use that affiliation. But I want to let you all know that if you are a member of a fishing club, and you see on here we've got TRCP, which is a national organization that uses the app. We have small clubs like the Port St. Lucie Anglers, and some of these are Pinellas High School clubs. So it's a free app. You can email me, brett@snookfoundation.org, or info@angleraction. It's just fine too. And we can create an affiliation for your club, and that way you can be the hero and get everyone in your club involved to collect data that's used for conservation, but also for your logbook to help you be a better fisherman, as you're going to see tonight. So again, this is a drop-down menu. Anything here that you don't fill in, if it's not mandatory, it's just automatically defaulted. I believe this just says none, or it might be the one at the top of the alphabetical list. But as long as you fill out the mandatory fields here, that are the ones with the asterisks next to them, you'll be in the system. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. Check for questions real quick and see if anything is here.
Good, no
okay,
questions.
Great. Okay, now your registration information that is required, you can't get through without putting that in. But once you get into the system like that, it allows you to go into, on the top left there, you see these buttons that say My Account and My Preferences. Your account has some basic information in it there that you needed to register. But preferences is where you're going to start to put in data that you're going to actually use as you sort through your trips later. And this is where you put in what your typical fishing trip looks like. So for me personally, I don't have the time to go out and go fishing as much as I'd like to, but I do live on a canal. I can go fishing behind my house. So while this is a dummy account that I put here, if this was my personal stuff, you would see I would actually change from saltwater to freshwater. I would change striped bass to largemouth bass. I would change from boat to from shore or dock. So these are the things that when you start a new trip, whether you do it in the app or you do it on the website, it auto-populates these fields. And if you're out in your usual spot, you just press Start Trip. All the information pops in, and you don't have to do anything except press Next to your location page. If I drive up the street and he's out of town and I'm going to fish in his secret spot, all I do is change what is different. I'll go to the Palm Beach County and I'll change that to Martin County. And that's important to keep up on these things with your trips, because when you go back through to use this information to plan out your future trips, you need your data to be as accurate as possible. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, the importance of this data for conservation, obviously, it's got to be accurate for it to be valuable. So again, these fields here, if you don't fill them out, they're left blank. Some of these at the bottom here are kind of artifacts from a previous version before we had a tournament system. The boat captain and the captain number and all that, and division were for tournaments. You can fill that stuff out to help you sort through your trips, or you can leave it out because they will help you filter. All right, let's move ahead.
You didn't tell them where my secret spot was yet.
They already all know.
All right, I guess so.
Okay, so once you have that information in on the website, And you can enter all that information in any of the apps, like I said. And what you're seeing here is screenshots from iAngler Lite. If you enter that information in angleraction.org, this is a very responsive system. As soon as you download the app, or even if you have the app already on your phone, then you go to the website and enter your preferences. As soon as you open the app, it'll be ready to accept your username and password. The information goes back and forth very quickly. So once you're registered in and you see on the left, that's what you'll see when you open pretty much all of our apps. It might look a little different in the background if it's the Guy Harvey app or the Chesapeake Catch, but you get this screen that says welcome in, and you can start your new trip. And this is great because you don't have to try to keep track of how many minutes you fished, because when you're done, you just hit the anchor and it knows that you're done, and it calculates how long you fished. But you see on there that at any time through the app, you can look at all your previous trips. You can look at your locations that you've logged in the past. And you've got some menu features on the bottom here. The cloud is a weather feature that allows you to look at a 48-hour weather forecast and tide report for anywhere you're going to go fishing. You can search where you're headed if you're going on a road trip. You can look at regulations of different places where you are. So there's a lot of different things that this can do for you staying within the app. The second page there, once you start a trip, it's going to, well, the next thing you'll get is a page that has all your preferences. And I didn't show it because it's basically the same information from the last page. It's got all of your personal information that you put in there, freshwater, bass, a typical trip, and that's where you change it if you're doing something a little bit different. The next page from there is your locations, and this to me is the most important feature for me when I'm going back through my trips, because it allows you to save your spots as a favorite. You can find your location just by pressing that green button, and it gives you a GPS. Or up on the top right there, you see that star. That is your list of your favorite spots that you've saved. Once you save a location as a favorite, you can go back through from that list and pull it down. And again, it doesn't matter if you change apps. It doesn't matter if you go to the computer. If you saved a spot as your favorite spot, it'll always be there for you. The thing to keep in mind is you don't need to put your coordinates in. That you can leave blank. You can leave it at zeros if you want. That's fine. It's going to default to the county as far as fisheries management goes. So you want to make sure that that's at least accurate. But you can name your location like I know where my home dock is, so I don't need the coordinates or the map to get there. I might just leave that blank because I know where I'm talking about. I'm going to find it every time unless I've had too many. But basically, you don't have to give up your exact location. And again, because it's password protected, no one else is going to see it. And as you can see, the coordinates are truncated down. We don't share your locations with anybody. We don't allow you to accidentally share it on Facebook. You have to opt in each time to save locations if you share a fishing trip on Facebook or Twitter or something. But I do recommend that you name your locations at the very least, because it really does help you file through your trips later and help you figure out where you want to go. All right, let's move on. And once you've got your trip started, on your left here, this is exactly what it looks like. If you press, almost all of our pages have a button that says log a catch. So at any place in the app, you catch a fish, bang, you hit log a catch. You can take a picture of it. It saves that photo to your phone, and it puts it into the system for you. If you're, like say this person happens to be lucky enough to live on a dock where a bonefish is what he's catching, and that's a typical trip, just fine, he's all set. If he caught a redfish there, he just clicks on that word bonefish on the top and he'll find the fish that he caught and log it in. You enter your length. You don't need to enter your length. It's optional. You don't need to add a photo. That's optional. The location defaults to wherever you said you were. These questions near the bottom were questions that FWC and NOAA have asked us to include. Whether you kept it or released it, I can't tell you how important that is for them. What the condition of the fish was when you released it, and where it was hooked. If you decide you're going to keep that fish, if it's legal, it's fine, and we hope you do. Enjoy it. Then the release condition disappears. That field doesn't count if you kept it. So if you're not sure what a bonefish is, but you think you've got one, you can click that sample picture, and whatever species you have there, it'll pull up the FWC or NOAA image of that fish. So it's difficult to search fish that way, but if you're pretty sure you know what you have, You can find the fish, click sample picture, look at what you've got. Okay, is this it? Now, once you submit your catch down here at the bottom, it goes into your queue, and you see on the right now, this is a different trip, but this is what it looks like. This trip, this person had a sailfish and a mutton snapper, and he can close the app. He's still out there fishing. He gets another fish. He opens the app. That's the page he's going to see. He logs the catch. If he moves spots and he wants to record that change, he hits the map with the arrow on it, and he'll create a second location. If it's a spot that you still go to, you can, on that second location, pick from your favorite spots or create a new one. And when you're all done, the anchor on the right ends your trip. It will ask you to confirm the amount of time you actually spent fishing, so you can kind of subtract out your boat travel time, or if you forgot to log out and you realized you fished for 2 hours but it's been open for 8, you can adjust it there. And once you synchronize it, that the information goes into the system, and now you can access it back from the website or from your app. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the ways to get into your personal information and look at your trips. And again, you can do this from the app. You can do it from the web browser on your phone. But what I really recommend, and when you get to this planning stage, is that you do it from a laptop or a computer, or at least a tablet, because you're looking at screens here that are really going to be it's just easier to maneuver around, and there's a lot of data fields here, and this can become a very powerful tool. So let's just skip right ahead to the next one. We're coming back to the website now. Now, this is my personal front page. When I go to angleraction.org and I log in as myself, and you see that I've got this started in March of 2012, this particular incarnation of the database. Since then, I've logged in over 350 trips. Now, a good number of those have been test trips, so they're marked as such. All those aren't real trips, and but I put in, fake fish. Basically, I can go back through. I can look at on the left side here. You see your recent trips in chronological order. So, yes, I was in the Bahamas last week bone fishing, and I had 3 days over there in Abaco, and I can go back, look at those trips, look at my locations, see what I caught, try to plan a trip next year around the same sort of thing or whatever. On the far right, you see photos that I have submitted. You see a lot of those are dummy photos. But any photo that I have submitted, whether it's, again, on the computer when I got home or through one of the apps, it stores them for me, and I can go back through and look at those images. Now, what we're going to look at here is this middle section here that says Generate Reports. And this is where you can go back now through all of your trips. And for me to go through 360 trips and try to find snook fishing trips where I've had some success, it would be useless for me to go through, and very time consuming to have to scroll through every single trip and try to find them and earmark them and sort them out. So what we've done is created a filter system in this generating reports. So what we're going to look at here, you see these trip reports, locations, catch reports. Catch reports is one that shows all the fish that you caught, whether you kept it or let it go. Trip reports is more based on the actual data in the trip from the first page, the location and things like that. So there's overlap in some of these, but those are the two primary types of reports that I'm going to suggest that you start with when you're looking back at your own trips. And by the way, if you're looking at this saying, man, I wish I had recorded all my trips, or I've been keeping a log for a year now on paper, if you have all the information in front of you for trips that you've taken, you can transpose that information into the system and backdate it, as long as you've got it written down and you know it's accurate. Because it's used for research, we don't recommend that you go back and say, yeah, I went fishing a month ago and I caught 6 or 7 bonefish or something, and then estimate them. Because this is used for science too, we really need accurate information. So if you know what it is, or if, like Mike here, you don't catch fish when you go and it's very easy to remember, then you can go back and enter those trips in, and you can kind of backfill those data fields, and they become something you can use for your searches. But on to the next screen here, we're going to look at the first way you see your trips in a catch report.
Did you tell them about my mangrove snapper? It was this big.
It was, yes.
I love my mangrove snappers.
Okay. All right, now the first trip you saw, the report there, it showed my fishing trips in reverse order. This actually shows them in chronological, and you can move those around. But what you happen to be looking at here was the first trips that were entered in March 2012 from me. And these are trips that were entered by me and the fish that were caught. So you see the species here, you see the numbers that were caught. The very first trip that I've logged there was a snook fishing trip where I didn't catch squat. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep track of your trips where you got skunked, your zero catch trips, because they are very important for you when you're trying to figure out, like I said, your successes and your okay, I see Ed, you've lost volume. You're all right back on here with volume? Make sure everyone else can hear me.
So we're getting some issues that people say we've lost volume. Anybody have sound, please?
Okay.
I'm
okay,
good.
Great.
All right, so it looks like most of you do. Ed, we'll see what we can do for you. Go ahead, sorry.
All right. Okay, so you see here I've got this snook trip where I didn't catch anything. Now that really comes into play when you're trying to plan snook fishing trips in the future, because not only are you going to want to look at trips where you've had success, you want to look at trips where you haven't had success and try to start to figure out your own patterns of your fishing trips. And the key button on this page is the filter button. So when you click on that and now the other menu buttons there, dashboard just takes you back to your home page there. And once you've started a filter, you can come back to this list that shows all the catch records again, and you can email data to yourself if you want to save it in a different format. Once you get what you want, you can download it as an Excel file or different types of things. You can access your own trips. Again, no one else can enter it unless you give them your password. So this is your data, this is your trips, this is for you to use to better your fishing. So let's move on. Let's say I click the filter button here, and I'm going to show you what okay, these are your filter fields. Now, the disadvantage of doing this in a screenshot or PowerPoint here and not getting to see the screen is there is about twice as many filter fields on the left as you can see. But what I decided here, I'll just go ahead and so I'm going to say on the left, I'm going to do my snook family. Common snook was a subspecies. Quantity caught, I went ahead and said greater than one fish. You can have, there's all kinds of different ways to do that. Less than, equal to. You can kind of get ranges of fish that you caught, but let's say I want to see all the snook trips where I caught at least 2. So it wasn't a fluke one catch, and I just want to pull those trips out. So once I've done those things, and again, you can filter this for any species or anything like that you've gone fishing for. So now we're not going to see that zero catch trip anymore, ideally, if it's working right, because I said I only want to see my snook trips where I was targeting snook, where I caught snook, and I caught at least 2. So on to the next page there.
Dun, dun, dun.
There you go. We started off originally, you said I had 360 trips. There's about a dozen trips on here where I went snook fishing and I caught a couple of fish. So then you can look at these and say, all right, now what have we got? What's going on in these trips that was different than the ones that I wasn't catching anything? And you kind of pick some of these out. Now this particular one that I said I just kind of picked out randomly here, that was a trip down into Everglades National Park in October of 2013. It shows that I wanted to see trips where I caught more than 2 snook. What you're going to see here is other information from that trip. If we can go forward. Okay.
Do whatever you want.
So here is my actual catch record from that trip. I caught 3 snook, I caught a tarpon, handful of redfish, some jacks, some ladyfish, and I can't remember what the other species was. We've added a lot of species as we've gone here. But here's where you see now on the right, I've got the temperature in, the wind speed, the lunar phase. I had the ability to put sunrise, sunset, moonrise, and moonset. The position of the tide. I've got my location there. I kind of scrolled off there because that was one of my friend's spots down off of Cape Sable. But here's my point is that now you've got these variables in your trip that you can look at. All right, this was a full moon. This was a low incoming tide. If I'm going to go fishing down in the Everglades that time of year, and I want to have this type of a trip again, I'm shooting for this kind of success level, I'm going to look on the calendar or look in my Navionics app, and I'm going to say, okay, what's the day and what time am I going to go there this October, and plan my trip accordingly. So again, this is a halfway decent trip for someone like me who doesn't fish as much as I should. Before I would do that, I might now go to that location and filter my trips and see if I've got 10 or a dozen trips on that spot, and look at the trips where I didn't catch anything and say, well, what were my tides? What was my lunar phase? What was my temperatures from that trip? And say, okay, is there a particular variable that I need to avoid if I'm going to that spot moving in the future?
So basically what we're doing here is we're taking that big pile of logbooks that your grandfather gave you from fishing all those years and made you read through when you were 13 years old so you could learn how to fish. It's taking all that and putting it onto the internet for you so you can easily filter it, more or less. Is that right?
Yeah. Is that message there from Joe, the one you just pointed out?
No, that was
okay.
Another one.
Okay.
Oh, there's another one. Hold on, question. Periodics. All right.
Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys about the sound that's going in and out. We haven't touched anything on that, so we will keep doing what we're doing and hoping it fixes itself. It's the best I can do for you right now.
Charles, if you can hear me now, if there's something that you got cut off and you had a specific question, go ahead and type it in, and we'll keep checking as we go here. I've just about gotten everything that I want to say here about. I think the next screen here
is going to be me.
I think there might be one more. Oh, okay.
Brett was kind of talking about, when you go back through, you filter through your results, and you can see, I caught these 3 oversized snook, and it was on a full tide or on a high tide, or the tide was going out, or one way or another. So one of the things that I do when I'm going fishing, I know when I fish, especially this is the Jupiter Inlet here, the screenshot on the left side. I know when I fish the Jupiter Inlet and I'm fishing the jetty, I want to be fishing an outgoing tide. So I have the Navionics app on my phone. I just go to the Jupiter Inlet where the little crosshairs is there. I'm going to draw for you because I can. You put the little crosshairs where you're interested in. Click on the question mark right there, and you're going to get this screen on the second over on the right. At that point, if you click on weather, anyway, if you click on weather, you're going to get the screen here on your left, which is going to give you the tides for the area you're in. You're going to get the wind direction. You're going to get the, moon phases, sun and sunrise, sunset, that kind of thing. As you can see here, high tide was at 1:57 p.m. I did this morning, so 1:57 p.m. this afternoon. If you click on this tide quadrant right over here, you're going to get this screen, which is going to show you your location, Jupiter Inlet. It's going to give you this on the bottom, this kind of curvy, hilly graphic. What that is the tides over the next 2 days. If you're scrolling through on your phone, the little now cursor, you can scroll up there, see high tides at 1:57, low tides at 8 o'clock tonight, which means you should all be out snook fishing right now at the Jupiter Inlet instead of sitting here watching this seminar. But it'll scroll through for the next 2 days, so you can get a pretty good idea of what your tides are going to be doing, all from your phone. If you're on your boat, like I am a lot of times, if I'm on the boat and we want to go fish a certain spot, but I want to make sure the water's going to be right when we get there, we just click onto the app, check out our tides, see what's going on, if it's somewhere we want to run to or not. So this just kind of goes back to what Brett was talking about with the filtering of information, and just making sure that when you get to where you're going, whether you're walking, whether you're in your boat, you've got the best possible chance of catching fish when you get there. All right, we're back on sound apparently, moving right along. And for those of you, real quick, for those of you that can't hear or not hearing really well, we're going to post this webinar up on YouTube probably tomorrow. If you want, just email me and I can get you a copy of that link just so you'll have the whole thing, hopefully soundproof. All right, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Oh, okay. This page comes back, and it's now I know we filtered through our trips before we looked at our catch data. This is what it looks like if you do a search by trip data. and it's not centered just on a particular species. This is filtered by trip. So this was a particular fishing trip that I did with a friend of mine where we our intention was to drive his express down off the Keys from Palm Beach County, and then spend the next 3 days drifting all the way back, just drift with the current, swordfish at night, fish for opportunities along the way back for a dolphin or tuna or whatever. And so same thing. On that trip, you see, we went out, we did not have very good luck sword fishing. Actually, the weather was really bad. You see, the wind was not exactly honking, but it was actually really rough out there. The captain was getting sick. I spent most of the first night tied into the dinghy on the front so I wouldn't get tossed off the boat. But then the next morning, we got into some dolphin along the way. We just fly fish for those. Caught a handful of them, kept a couple that were a little bigger, and then we tried to troll in for tuna on our way home. But again, the point is, you see that there is conditions here where we did not do well with the swordfish. We did okay with the dolphin. So it's a mixed bag here. But the point there is you can filter through in many different kinds of ways. And a trip like this on those locations, I didn't put those in as favorites because they were not someplace specifically that I'm going to go back to fish again. They were just more of general spots. They weren't marked by a feature. But my point of showing you this was that if you filter your own fishing trips in different ways, it just gives you a different look of the trip. And as long as you're entering this data as you go, the temperature and the tides and the lunar phase, that's all in there, and those are all fields that you can use to sort through and filter your own fishing trips. So the last thing I just want to say about all this is that I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning if you weren't on a couple weeks ago. All these apps and this whole service, it is a free service. It's provided to you at no cost by the foundation, and the purpose of it is for the conservation of the fish. So that's why we encourage you to really use it, and this personal benefit that you get from it is secondary from our ultimate goal of conservation. I'll tell you that there's a gentleman on the West Coast that fly fishes who's logged over 500 trips, and he's basically gone from club to club over there using this app to show them how he specifically has used this app to improve his catch rates fly fishing on the beach over there by just keeping track of these sort of things and converting his old hand logbook style of keeping his trips to this type of system. And now he basically uses it religiously every day, sorts through his trips, figures out which spot on the beach and what time of the day he's going to go fish, and he goes out there and really beats them up. So it is free. Please go ahead and download the app, register in the system, become comfortable with it. If you want to log dummy trips, you can change your affiliation all the way down at the bottom there on that list. There's one called internal use only. You can enter as many trips in that internal use as you want, and they aren't counted in the scientific analysis. However, they will show up in your filter. So you might want to delete them after you've put them in, just so you don't confound yourself with your fishing trips thinking that you've got something there that you don't. And I think that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'm going to hang around while Mike wraps up as well.
Well, thank you, Brett, very much. Like I said at the beginning, the whole goal of this is to kind of give you guys the best tools available to help you become better anglers, more successful anglers. You know, it's pretty user-friendly, as you can tell. It might look daunting from the beginning, but I think if you look at it in person, it's pretty simple to figure out. It's very simple when you're on the water. You know, catch a fish, take a picture, log a fish. Very easy. And not only is it going to come back and help you be able to have an electronic log of what you caught, but it also comes into our database, which we are able to share with people to help with things like redfish regulations or Snook regulations or whatever kind of data people need. We can have that, and we're more than willing to share. The Snook Foundation is. If you've got any questions, now would be a good time to ask. If not, you've all gotten emails from me about this webinar. Feel free to respond to one of those. Again, thank you very much for attending. I don't know if you want to hang out a minute or if you're willing to.
For sure, yeah.
Do that.
How do you see if somebody sent a question? You get a notification there.
It's up right here. What we can do is